Bearcat Blitz, welcome in all of our great listeners to another edition of the show. Viewers as well, you can catch us on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts, or on the YouTube page, Talking Cats with Russ Heltman. That's yours truly of Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. And of course, right across the way from me there, Neil Meyer of Rivals Cincinnati site, the front office news.com. Another winning week continues. The winning vibes roll on for Cincinnati basketball as they take out the Utah Utes 85-75. We'll get to that quickly to start the show. Another 20-plus point outing for Jizzle James, back-to-back showings on that front, and this time a little bit more efficient than his back-to-back showings in the NIT tournament, or the NIT, I should say, not the National Invitation Tournament, back in April, March of 2024. More efficient this time around and looks to be in command of the killer role in Cincinnati's offense. They're going to need him to be a killer against Iowa State, the number 10 ranked team in the country, on Saturday afternoon on the road, a venue where the Cyclones have only lost one time in the past season plus of basketball, dating back to the fall of 2023. Get to all that, but first I want to tell you about Bet Online. Bet Online is your most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Quick message from our sponsors before we get to the meat of the show here on Bearcat Blitz, presented by BetOnline. Neil, 85-75 win for the Bearcats over the Utah Utes. Jizzle James was lights out once again, 25 points. That ties his career high on 10 of 15 shooting, hit all of his free throws, and dished out 4 assists, 6 total in the game, 4 assists in the second half against Utah. A masterful performance from the rising sophomore. And on top of that, they got 11 points out of Simas Lukosius, 10 points out of Aziz Mandego on 4 of 8 shooting, plus 10 rebounds from Aziz. He was all over the boards. And 13 points, another career high scoring night from Josh Reed. He ties a career high with 3 made threes, even hit a step back triple, 4 rebounds as well. Neil, 24 points off the bench for the Bearcats, and Josh Reed, plus the ascendance of Jizzle James, has really brought this Cincinnati offense to another level, scoring 80-plus points for a third consecutive game and a third consecutive win.
Yeah, no, most importantly, Russ, you talk about Jizzle James coming off a huge 25-point performance. I think that's the difference maker in this one. Obviously, Josh Reed played a massive role off the bench as well, but to see Jizzle James put up 25 on 10 of 15 shooting was a really efficient night. And what's even more impressive, Russ, was we heard from Utah's Craig Smith after the game saying that Jizzle James was in a quote-unquote full lather sweat when the Utes arrived for shoot-around at 10 a.m. That morning, getting a workout in. And then moments after it, we see the next morning that Edgerrin James actually shared a message between him and Jizzle, which was a very cool message, which states, game day, you was in the gym late last night. Nobody puts in more work than you do. You know your spots. Get to them with conviction. Play fast. Nobody cares about what you did last game. Consistency breeds habits. Habits create the norm. Make having good games become the norm. It's Jizzle James time. And stop missing them free throws. Take your time and walk through the routine. And Jizzle responded by saying, let's get it. Stick to my regiment and let's get to work. Let the work show tonight. It's showtime. No more losing. We're going to that tournament 100 emoji. So, matter of fact, kids, looks like the Bearcats are gaining their confidence back, and it all started with Jizzle James, who has been on a tear the last few games. And Russ, there was one play in particular in this game where you and I both kind of looked to each other. Jizzle James put somebody on skates, he's probably still skating on Calhoun Street and former Bearcat and Gabe Madsen, but overall, that
especially with that weather on Tuesday night, definitely skating.
Yeah, that was a masterful performance for Jizzle James. But on the other end, Gabe Madsen, talk about a homecoming for him. I mean, Russ, there was one point in the game where we all looked at each other. We said, is he going to miss or no? But Josh Reed
He started missing there in the second half. That's for sure. What do you have, Neil? A stadium or arena record 22 3-point attempts.
Yeah, 22 3-point attempts, which was the most in Fifth Third Arena's history. But overall, that's a huge testament to Josh Reed on the defensive end, because Madsen missed his final 7, all with Josh Reed in the defense of it. Overall, huge game for those two guys. Spoke to Josh yesterday on the Bearcat Tip-Off Talk interview series. Man, he was a fun time. MVP chance, Fifth Third Arena was rocking. It's good to see Josh getting that kind of love from the Bearcat fans as well.
The vibes are high. There was a fun feeling around practice yesterday. A lot of good energy. A lot of good work got done in front of the media in their open practice on Thursday. That was fun to watch. After Wes Miller gave us an update real quick on Connor Hickman. He has not played in the past month plus. Has not played, Neil, I believe, since the game against Baylor, and that was a few weeks after he started feeling that foot discomfort following the impactful game against Xavier. And just has unfortunately not been able to get over that injury, not been able to fight through it. And that's not, I mean, it is what it is. The injuries are really brutal. It's the worst part of covering the sport. And there is no definitive update from Wes Miller on if he will even be able to return this season. So Cincinnati, once again, going to have to keep relying on Jizzle James, on Day Thomas, who hit a couple clutch shots, did not continue his scorching shooting performance in this game against Utah. Was 2 of 7, which is 7 points, but did enough, had 5 assists, was able to really help guide the offense alongside Jizzle James in this outing. 27 minutes for him, 28 minutes for Jizzle James. It feels like the rotation is really starting to settle in here. Freshman Tyler Betsy had another game with multiple 3-point makes. He's been a really, really big part of that 3-point, just definitive way to win, Neil. This team, I believe it's either 9 or 10. I'm pretty sure it's 9 make threes. If they make 9 made threes in a game this season, they have not lost. 8-0 on the campaign when they do that. They were 11 of 22 from deep. Just goes to show you how much they picked their spots compared to a team like Utah, who took 32 threes and 22 of those from Gabe Madsen himself at 26 shots in the game. They kind of made him get a little bit one-dimensional. Probably should have attacked the rim a little bit more, considering how much Utah was able to work the paint. 32-24 point paint advantage, and that's something that Cincinnati is going to have to clean up against an Iowa State team that thrives on attacking that rim and getting their scoring done around the basket in terms of dunks and close twos. Overall, though, Neil, before we get to the break, when we look at the Bearcats' resume right now, a quad 2 win against Utah, or now that's sitting at quad 3, Utah hovering between 78 and 75. You're hoping the Utes can continue winning on their end the rest of the season so that they can get into that top 75, which would make that game on Tuesday night a quad 2 victory. As of right now, 1-0 in quad 3, 6-2 in quad 2, 1-7 in quad 1, with another quad 1 game coming up on Saturday, and 7-0 in quad 4 outings. There's 6 quad 2, quad 1 games remaining, 1 quad 3 in TCU, which is sitting at 79th right now, right behind Utah. Both of those matchups could end up very easily being quad 2 matchups at the end of the season once it's all said and done. And with 5 wins needed, I would project right now the rest of the season out of the 7 contests. They got a little bit of help with Wake Forest losing earlier this week on the bubble. And Neil, with that loss and with how weak the bubble kind of looks right now, if Cincinnati can get 5 victories in their final 7 contests, not going to be very easy to do, because you'd imagine they have to win 2 of 4 out of those quad 1 matchups at Iowa State, at West Virginia, home against Baylor on the 25th, and at Houston on March 1st. They should put themselves in a very good position, especially with at least 1 win in the Big 12 tournament, to make the NCAA tournament. When we look at their projection odds right now on Bart Torvik, I will go ahead and refresh that in real time right now. They are sitting at 14.4% chance to make the NCAA tournament on Bart Torvik, way higher than they were this time last week. I think they were around 3 or 4%. So doing what they have to do to get their confidence back, but a massive game against Iowa State coming up, and we'll get to that right now. Are you with me though, Neil? It feels like 5 of 7 in this final stretch, plus at least one win in the Big 12 tournament, which if you get the 5 of 7, you're most likely going to be sitting at 10-10 overall in the conference, right in the middle of the pack seeding wise, maybe a 7, 8, 9 range seed, and getting a win over a 9 or a 10 seed should get them, I would say, into the dance after being dead on arrival 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, Russ, because you look at the standings right now, obviously you're sitting at the 8-5 record, 5-8 record in Big 12 play. Yeah. You need to be at 500 to make the NCAA tournament. And I think everybody kind of agrees in that aspect who covers the Big 12. A 10-10 team is more than likely, in the Big 12 at least, more than likely going to make it over any other bubble team just due to how strong the Big 12 is. I mean, right. Joe Lunardi projected 12 teams out of the 16 as potential candidates to make the NCAA tournament. But I'm there with you. You start with the big game here at Iowa State, and it's a big one, Russ. And this is where it could define everything, because you look at what Iowa State's done at home, right? They are 30-1 in Ames over the last 2 years, year and a half. This is a huge opportunity, and an opportunity where Cincinnati matches up a lot better than people expect. But Cincinnati has to win 5, and if they go 10-10, you're still going to need maybe 1 or 2 in the Big 12 tournament that kind of fluffs the seating a little bit and seals your seat, per se. That makes your seat a little bit easier to get in if you can get 1 or 2 wins in the Big 12 tournament as well.
Right, and if they go 3-1 in these quad 4 games, 9-11 might be able to do it if they end up having a stumble here or there. It just depends on what those wins end up being down the stretch over the final. What we got about a little less than a month left in the season. No time left in this segment. Let's get to a break here on Bearcat Blitz, presented by Bet Online, plus a preview of Iowa State coming up after this. Tale of the tape here, Neil, between the Cincinnati Bearcats and the Iowa State Cyclones. We look at this matchup, Cincinnati sitting at, like we said, 15-9 overall. They are on the season 5-8 in conference, sitting at 55th in the net right now, 56th in KenPom, and 36th in the net, and it's going to be a very tough task. 55th on KenPom, 47th in the net as we sit here out of this recording, up against the number 7th net team in the country and the number 17 on KenPom and the Iowa State Cyclones. As you mentioned, they have 1 loss this season at home, a blowout loss to Kansas State a couple weeks back, 80-61. And UC enters this game 4-3 all time against Iowa State. And the last time they played at Iowa State, I believe they got a nitty-gritty Mick Cronin special win in the 50s over the Iowa State Cyclones. Cincinnati would take any type of win at this point against a team like this when you're talking about one of the best defensive teams in the country. They got their guy Monsilovich back, and they have one of the deepest lineups in the country, a bulldog type of defender in Joshua Jefferson, a go-to lights-out guard in Curtis Jones and Keyshawn Gilbert. Both those guys can crush you. Taman Lipsey is a bulldog defender at the guard position as well, at 6'1", 200 pounds. Jefferson, as I mentioned, top 10 defensive rating in the entire country. And when I look at the matchup here, Neil, for Cincinnati and what they have to do on offense, it comes down to working early in the shot clock, not letting the Iowa State patented bogged down defense make you use the entire shot clock type of mentality, hit them throughout this game. And then I mentioned the 3-point shooting. If they can hit 9+ threes in this game, Neil, they, I think, will have a chance to win the ball game in the final minutes and let their offensive killer, Jizzle James, go to work. It's not going to be very easy, though. The number 7th ranked team in adjusted defensive rating on KenPom. It's going to be a full test for Jizzle James, and a team that does not allow a lot of easy shots at the rim. They allow teams to hit just 46.2% of their twos. That's second in the Big 12 play so far this conference slate. A little bit more susceptible to that 3-ball, though, and that's why it's so important for Cincinnati to carry over the shooting on the road and be able to shoot like they did at earlier points in the season on the road. They really haven't done it very consistently on the road. That's a massive, massive factor here against a team allowing 33.6% from deep and just with so much ability to turn you over. I think they had 19 or 18 turnovers against Cincinnati last year. They're the top turnover forcing team in the country, or not in the country, in the Big 12 conference action right now, forcing 14.2 turnovers in Big 12 play. Day Thomas, Jizzle James, they have to not only operate quickly and find good shots quickly, but they can't get too rushed and turn those quick looks into turnovers.
Yeah, absolutely. And Russ, as we talk about Iowa State too, what makes them such a good team is they have 5 guys scoring in double figures. So any given night, it could be 1 or 2 different guys who beat you. But Momcilovic has been the difference maker for Iowa State this season. Obviously, he's battled a hand injury, broken
Came
hand.
back 2 games ago, right? I believe.
Came back 2 games ago. And while he was out, that's when Iowa State went on that losing skid where they lost 3 straight games.
And they lost that home game without him.
Lost the home game to Kansas State where they got beat by 19. But on top of it, Momcilovic is a 6'9" forward who can shoot the heck out of it from behind the arc. And Wes Miller talked about it yesterday. A high shooting pocket brings the ball behind his head. And when he shoots, he can shoot lights out. He's 44% from the field and 44% from behind the arc. When you have a big fella shooting like that, it's going to be hard to defend. But that's why I think this matchup is so well for Cincinnati. But they're going to need a big game from Jizzle James. They cannot turn the ball over versus this kind of defense. But, Russ, as we mentioned, keys for Cincinnati, pushing the tempo. They are now 6-0 this season when they have shot the ball 60 or more times in a game. Push the tempo. Let's have a little bit of fun here in Ames. It could be a defensive battle. It could be a high-scoring battle. Who knows? But it's going to be a battle that a lot of people are going to be tuned into, to say the least. It's probably going to be one of your best games in all of college basketball this weekend.
Oh, no doubt about it. I'm so excited for this one. And it's a solid matchup for Cincinnati, as Neil has mentioned. Of the 5 losses ISU has had this season, every single one of them has seen their opponent hit at least 9 triples. So it's almost a given. Like, you have to hit threes in this game to give yourself a chance to win. And we look at the defensive side of the ball for Cincinnati, it matches up pretty well against an Iowa State team that is really, really interiorly dominant on the offensive end, just like they are dominant against the 2-point shot on the defensive end. They're shooting 92% on dunk attempts, 67.8% on close twos, and those 2 shot varieties make up 43% of their shot diet, according to Bart Torvik, which is a high number compared to what you mostly see in the analytics era of teams trying to move towards the 3-point shooting aspect of things. And Neil, they hunt fouls like the best of them in the Big 12. 21.4 free throw attempts in conference play this season. That's second in the Big 12. They're 46 nationally overall in free throw rate, hovering around 40% on that metric, and 2.9 free throw attempts per game for 5 different ISU players. So there's not really one guy that's going to just hammer the rim and try to get to the line more consistently than anybody else. Curtis Jones, as I mentioned, 17.4 points per game, is one of those guys. He's a solid outside shooter, along with Momcilovic, as you mentioned, 43.9% from deep in his 10.1 points per game outing so far this season. They can't give up 35 to 40 points in the paint in this game and expect to win. And they have to be better on that ball screen defense that Wes Miller hammered home yesterday in our discussion with him, and in the post-game press conference when I kind of asked him, like, what was wrong with what happened on those just easy dunks to the rim that Lawson Lovering, the center for Utah, was able to get so often. And he said it was just ball screen breakdowns that they have to clean up, and it's stuff that they can clean up. Will they clean it up in time against Iowa State? We're about to find out. But you see, Neil, they don't foul. They don't foul very much at all. They're allowing just 13.9 free throws per game in conference play. That's number 1 in the Big 12, and they've only committed 14.2 fouls per game overall. That's second in the Big 12. There is a path here for Cincinnati to get this win. If it was at home, I would probably pick the upset. I would probably roll with the Bearcats, but just that number that you mentioned, 30-1, and undefeated last year, undefeated this year at home with Momcilovic, I think it's just barely too much a tall task for Cincinnati to be able to climb. Give me the Cyclones 73-71 in a classic Big 12 battle. And we'll see if I can move to now 20-5 on my season prediction record after we both nailed Cincinnati blowing out or not blowing out necessarily. They've won by double digits, but we both had them winning by double digits against Utah. What's your pick, and what are you seeing on the defensive side of the ball for Cincinnati?
Yeah, for Cincinnati, it's going to come down to defending Momcilovic. If they can find a way to contain him off the three-point line and not give up those easy layups and dunks like we saw versus Utah, I think this is a game where Cincinnati, Russ, could go on the road and get a big-time quad one upset win. So for me, I'm rolling with the Bearcats, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair. I think it's going to go 66-64 in favor of UC. I think the defenses here just match up. Obviously, these two teams, they match up very well, very evenly across the board. So I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring one. So I don't know what the over-under is yet. I don't think it's came out yet. But if I'm a betting guy, you hit the under. I'm all in on a defensive clinic tomorrow with Cincinnati winning 66-64.
Opposite sides of the prediction coin for Neil and I. Will see who is right when we reconvene early next week. This has been Bearcat Blitz, presented by Bet Online. Enjoy the latest Big 12 action, everybody. Should be a lot of fun.
This is the second. 15 seconds left. Shot clock off. 4-point game. DeJulius puts up a three.